Now let's talk about leadership and the essential elements to that. Now, you've had an extraordinary career in terms of different roles. So first off, what is your philosophy of command, really?
Well, it's a great story. The Marine Corps actually attracts certain kinds of young people from our society. So there's the aspect of who joins the Marine Corps. There are many people who would never consider it. And I understand that, respect that, and actually the Marine Corps encourages people who don't think that's the right place for them not to come in. Because you need people in this kind of a situation who really want to be there, because they are going to, the veneer of civilization, I'll put it this way, is going to get rubbed off them and leave their character revealed. And if they cannot keep their sense of chivalry around innocent people who are caught up on a battlefield, if they can't keep a sense of who they are, then any leadership they adopt is a mimicking of something else that's not really them. So we want to attract people who have an ethical sense, and then the very tough-minded NCOs called drill instructors are going to make Marines out of them. In that regard, the Marine Corps' view of leadership is very, very simple, that you have a father-son, teacher-scholar relationship. It is to be really coaching more than commanding. And how does that equate to the reality of the jobs? When I was a division commander with 25,000 sailors and Marines, I could probably do the commanding aspects of the job in 10 to 15 minutes a day. Their other 23 hours and 45 minutes was spent on coaching young people who came of their own free will, want to do a good job, and you're trying to set the conditions, father, son, teacher, scholar, so that they can be successful.
There's a quote that I think I have here, if I can find it. You're talking about leadership, and you make the point that the importance of conveying your intent, yes, which is consistent with what you just said. So it's almost as if you need to say very little and rely a lot on this mentoring role that you just talked about.
What I found, Harry, was that the more time I spent thinking about my intent and succinctly describing what I wanted to have happen, the less time I had to give orders and commands during the fight. They knew what to do. I remember on one occasion fighting for 3 days, and I don't think I gave a half a dozen orders over 3 days. And I had 1,250 Arabs, sailors, and Marines under my command. So I think as we look at how we explain our intent, that is how you unleash the initiative and aggressiveness of young Americans who want to do the right thing. They've got a good ethical sense, and you allow them to use their initiative rather than becoming some kind of Prussian, everybody has to have permission to do anything. So I'd spent a lot of time on commander's intent, and I realized as a second lieutenant that probably my men didn't lay awake all night thinking, how am I going to mess up Lieutenant Mattis's day tomorrow? They were trying to do the right thing, so my job was to make sure they knew what the right thing was to do, and then unleash them. And when they make mistakes, understand the difference between a mistake where they were trying their best with the information they had at their age, many times they're very young men, but there's a difference between a mistake and a lack of discipline. And the Marine Corps is very abrupt and hold people accountable for a lack of discipline. They are accountable for it. They're not victims. They will act and behave like U.S. Marines. So it was this discrimination between a mistake and a lack of discipline, coupled with a sense that I owed them the best possible articulation of what my interests were, what my vision was, what my commander's intent was.
So it sounds like the preparation to convey intent is hard work on your part.
It is.
Because you've really got to think about the words you're going to use and make it a learning experience for them as you yourself do this hard work.
You know, Harry, I met once with General Colin Powell, actually on more than one occasion. He was a wonderful mentor, and if I had problems bothering me, I could always call him, or when I saw him, ask for some wisdom, which he was always eager to share. And he told me that he had sat for quite some time as he thought about how he was going to explain to the American people what we were going to do about the Iraqi army in Kuwait when we attacked. And eventually he came up with the words, we are going to cut off the head and destroy it. To this day, many people remember that one sentence. He didn't spend a long time on a strategic rationale and the operational pauses that would accompany the various operational missions. He gave a very succinct description of what was going to happen. Really, that's an example, obviously put in military terms, not civilian terms, for how you deal with a lot of time spent thinking about the strategic or the larger purpose, and then delegate to the young people the opportunities to exercise their initiative at the lowest level.
This is fascinating because in your role as a general, you have different audiences. And when you're head of Central Command, you even have more people who you have to talk differently to. And I think it's fair to say you are known for what is taken as statements. They're very outspoken.
Yeah.
But what you're suggesting here is that's an important element in communicating with the people under you. And whereas a different audience might read into what you're saying very different things.
It's gotten me cross-wired with people at times, but it never caused me to apologize, to take it back. I never changed my style. When asked once, where do you think you get the right to speak like that? I said, last time I checked, it was in the U.S. Constitution, the Bill of Rights. And I'm in the Marine Corps, but I'm not just in the Marines. I'm in the U.S. Marines, and I consider myself a U.S. citizen. Obviously, I never tried to upset anyone. It wasn't my goal to do that. It was to convey a purpose. But at the same time, I never thought I had to patronize young men who were 18 and act like they couldn't understand something. And generally, I tried to speak in a way to my admirals and generals, when eventually I had dozens of them under my command, the same way I spoke to the others who were more junior in rank, in experience, in age, of course. But it was designed for whatever audience I was speaking to, but it should resonate through all those ranks. And I had an Army general when I made colonel who pulled me aside and told me something that really affected me. He said, you have always up until now, as a battalion commander, company commander, platoon commander, you've been able to know your men personally. He said, you've known your sailors and Marines, you know their names, you see their walk, you can tell who they are at 50 meters away. He said, now you're going to executive leadership, and your leadership is going to be filtered down through different people. He said, you're going to have to make even more clear what your intent is. You're going to have to go to the graduate school now for this. Otherwise, what you've done all along and were able to reinforce with your knowledge of individuals will no longer be applicable. And so I kind of put myself back to school and read how generals in history have conveyed their intent, admirals in history, and it was a big help.